Not necessary?
No, actually it's not.
Oh my gosh.
What time it was necessary?
There was a time. I was feeling justified, but okay. There's a time for everything. It's working?
Yeah.
Can you hear me? Good. Okay, David, what are you busy with there? You're writing up
sorry,
notes? It's
writing,
okay. A chidush.
Sorry.
Amazing. So great.
Writing commentary
Yeah, on the Bible.
like 2 minutes between classes.
Creative mind is always thinking. It's great. Topic is relationships. I was asked just before, is there a book? So there are many books. Most of them are poor. One book which I like which we're going to start with now, Push. Yes, people don't realize. Yes, it's the Push. Yeah. The one book which I'd like to start, it's always a good place to start, is what book in the Tanakh speaks of relationships more than any other? Shira Shirim, good? Say again?
Is it not that? I was saying it is.
He's not wrong. He's not wrong. But I think there's more. Hosea. Well said. These are good answers. Hosea has this thing. Still not it. Still not it. Ruth, you're saying. If it was too easy, then, it wouldn't be a good question to start with, right? But I believe that there's a better book that talks more about relationships than even the Song of Songs or the Book of Ruth, which is also a love story. And what did you say? Hosea was a discussion about husband and wife and their names and changing their name, calling each other. There's one which is even more instructive when it comes to relationships.
Can you give us a hint?
I am. The hint is as follows. I knew from the title that not just your mind, but everybody's mind would immediately be rushing to, dating, marriage. What are you going to talk about? Relationships.
I mean, maybe Iyov. It's a relationship between Hashem and man.
Hashem and man is another type of relationship. But I think that the key to understanding and to have successful relationships between husband and wife, or even when you're dating, when you're trying to find, this type of relationship between man and woman, is to understand relationships in a wider scope, and to see what I'd like to present to you perhaps is that having relationships is an essential part of the very makeup of the world. Now there's your hint. Sefer Bereshit talks about relationships between God and the world, of course. He created the world, but then, and there's man and woman, I can't forget, Adam and Eve. But then it goes beyond that. There's so many relationships in the book of Bereshit. So what are they? What other relationships are there in the book of Bereshit?
There's the Avot and all the Imot.
Avot and Imot. So there's marriages for sure. What else?
Lines.
Ancestral lines. We've been reading the last two parshiot. Ancestral lines, which is grandparents, great-grandparents, great-great-grandparents, grandchildren, great-great-grandchildren, right? All the way, 10 generations. What are you saying?
Siblings, Yaakov and Esau.
Siblings. You're skipping to Yaakov and Esav. Cain and Abel. What a way to talk about relationships and brothers killing each other. Fratricide, I think it's called. And then Yaakov and Esav, and then what else? Other brothers. Yitzchak and Yishmael, and then 4 out of the 12 parshot of Bereshit speak about Yosef and his brothers, and they try to kill him again. Again, brothers trying to kill brothers. So that's a lot of family stuff going on in the book of Bereshit. And there's, go beyond that, there's, we're talking about the lines up and down. There's the grandparents and grandchildren. There's the uncles and aunts and the cousins, right? Amalek, Esav's children, Yaakov's children, and just last night I had a meeting with like a family gathering of cousins, my brothers and cousins, like the children of my uncles and aunts that are living here in Israel. It's different. We've never done that before. Just the cousins. Usually we do it with the kids in a park, on a Chol HaMoed, Pesach or Sukkot, with our parents, with the great grandparents, and but this time we tried something new, and a whole different dynamic. It was just like the adult cousins, so relationships with your cousins, a whole different, interesting type of relationship. What else in Bereshit? We're not done with Bereshit yet. I know we just started the book, so you can't remember since last year. But again, I'm expanding the definition of what we're talking about. It's not just about men and women and getting married. Other types of relationships in the book of Bereshit. Relation to animals is good. Right. That was Parshat Hashavua, Noach and the animals, absolutely. 2 of these kind, 7 of those kind. You got to feed them, take care of them. There's a lot. What else?
Yaakov and Lavan, that dynamic that Lavan was trying to take advantage of Yaakov for 14 years.
What's their relationship?
I guess employer-employee.
Employer-employee, very good. Very good. Not to mention brother-in-law, right? Brother-in-law. Right? Lavan was Rivka's brother, right? So
Yaakov's father. No.
Brother-in-law. The father was who was Lavan's father? Betuel. That's right. That was the father-in-law. The brother-in-law. Lavan was actually the brother-in-law. Good. What else? Someone else wants to say?
Relationship with Hashem.
With Hashem, no question about it. It's all prophecy. Prophets are talking to him. Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov.
Also like within relationships and also like for example from Lot and his daughter they came more
Excellent, good. Incest. Sodom and Gomorrah. What we don't. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Also the Bnei Elohim, who some say maybe like the son of God.
Very interesting example. Whatever the Bnei Elohim were, that they went and they joined with the women of the earth. Wow, interstellar relationships, aliens. I don't know what's going on there, but that's good. Well, there's one more that I'm looking for before we move ahead with this. It's one more category or type of relationship which is unique, perhaps, to the book of Bereshit. It introduces, right? What's this week's parsha? Right, last week was the animals. What happens in this week's parsha?
They call it the land. The land.
There's the land. Okay, relationship with the land is good, but also Abraham is known as the first Jew, right? And God promises that He's going to create a great nation. And then, so once you have a nation, you have international relations. International relations between, the Canaanites. Avram, in a few weeks, is going to go have a negotiation with the Hittites, and there's relations between nations as well. So Bereshit that's the book of relationships. Could be there's a lot of broken relationships. It's true. We should learn from the negative. We don't want to be killing our brothers. Don't get any ideas. As much as you don't get along with your brother, no. But so we mentioned, of course, relatives, and we mentioned nations. We mentioned couples. Then there's other relationships, maybe not beyond the. Let's leave Sefer Bereshit for a moment and think of our lives. What other types of relationships do you have in your life? What circumstances do you meet people there where you interrelate?
Formal relationships, work.
Friends, family. We said family. We were just talking about all the different kinds of family. Work, right? So you mentioned that's in Bereshit as well.
Yeshiva.
In yeshiva, sure.
Teachers.
Teachers and rabbis and students and very good. That's right. Here, what are you, peers, associates? Yeah, upstairs. Roommates. That's a unique type of relationship, right? It's like students, but it's another. And you can have also forget about here in Machon. So there's the other department, right? There's the French group, the Russian group. Shalom. These different groups within the institution. So this every institution's got a little politics within the institution, right? B'vakasha. Shalom. So yeah. Then what about different circumstances? So there's in the classroom. There's in the hanging out in the rooms in the lunch room. I've had complaints about how I was treated in the lunchroom. How do you act in the lunchroom? In the dining hall? There's etiquette. It's a sensitive, and there's different cultures in different. Of course, we're coming from different countries here, but let's expand even further. What other circumstances do you have in your life where you're interrelating with people that we might want to shine the flashlight on, the spotlight on at some point in our discussion of relationships? Other events, circumstances that you have in your life. Does everybody live here in the dorm? No, you don't. Right. How did you get here today?
I walked.
You walked.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you meet anybody on the sidewalk?
No,
No.
straight to.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so
Anybody else? You take a bus? No.
I don't have the opportunity.
No.
Sometimes you take buses.
You do take buses sometimes. On a bus, is there interactions?
Yes,
Interesting.
definitely.
Definitely.
When
Yeah.
you want to get out of the bus.
Out and in, but even sitting down there, are you talking on your phone? You're listening to their conversation? Are you having a conversation? Are you rude to them? Are you?
Institutions.
Every time you walk into a store,
Yeah,
there's a clerk, the bank, supermarket. You have interactions with people all the time, and find it shorter and longer, more intense, more intimate, and less, of course. But this is all. Yesterday was Shabbat, right? So where were you for Shabbat, Ben? Where were you for Shabbat?
I was in Beit El.
Beit El.
Yeah.
Where did you stay in Beit El?
The Fatushi family.
The Fatushi family. That's interesting. How was that like?
It's great there. I don't know.
Yeah,
With Hanan.
with Hanan. Terrific. Yeah. He's graduating, he's at Tekes next week
Yeah.
with Yossi. Yossi was in Tekoas. I saw him. That's an interesting relationship right there. Being
I
a
was
guest
invited
at a
there
family
by
home. But you don't even know the family.
Well,
You're a
yeah.
friend of somebody and he knows the family.
Yeah. This is the second time I've been there, but yeah. Hanan invited me to their house.
Very
Part of
interesting.
the family.
Very interesting relationship, right? You've all spent Shabbos at people's homes, right?
Good.
Dynamic around the table. Who says the Dvar Torah? Who speaks when? You ask for seconds? Did you help clean up?
Yeah, a little bit.
A little bit. Okay, interesting. Okay, you didn't do the dishes and you didn't wash the floors when you left.
No.
I had guests once. It was really funny. I laughed at it because it was clearly a line. They were told in their seminaries. 2 girls came over, and Shabbat was over, and then they say to us, "Listen, please let us wash the dishes. Our Shabbat will not be complete if we do not wash the dishes." I had to control myself from not bursting out laughing. It was clearly a line they were told to say. Okay, you go. You must wash the dishes when you finish. Okay, so it's a very interesting dynamic to be a guest at someone's house. I mean, even sometimes you're in an elevator for it could be a minute, 30 seconds. Do you talk to them? You don't talk to them? You look down, whatever. Do you say hello when you pass somebody in the hallway in the yeshiva? There's all these different types of relationships. And anybody here, I think, do you go to the gym? Do you go to the gym to work out? Who goes to the gym? You go to the gym to work out. That's an interesting one, right? Hopefully it's separate, men and women, but there's all sorts of circumstances where you interact with other people. If you're on a team and you play team sports, well, that's a whole nother ballgame, right? You got to help each other. Army units, a lot of the discussion of teamwork, and your relationship with the other guys is a big part of being a good soldier, right? You're putting in combat units, you're putting your life at risk for the other guys. And so there's just a lot. They're everywhere. So I convinced you? I believe we go back to the book of Bereshit, the very beginning, and we can see that this is the way God created the world. God created the world not only just with man and Adam and Eve, but even before that. The world was, at the beginning, how does it say? How does it go? Tohu vavohu v'chol shel. It was one big jumble. And God starts out and he decides to separate. What does he separate on day one? The light from the dark. Okay. And the second day, he separates between the heavens and the earth. All right. And then he separates between the third day, waters and the land. Right? He's always separating. What is separating? You're creating two entities. In other words, there's once you have two entities, you have a relationship. Could be they're opposites, but the very fact that there's two separate, think maybe our job is to bring them back together, to create unity, to unite the world once again. We'll skip ahead to day 6. He created man. Did he create man and woman together, separately?
One from the other.
Complicated. The first time it says that Adam Zachar u'nekeva bara otam. I'm going to give you, you've heard this before, but I'm going to give you a little Kabbalah. You might have heard of this, is that, Rashi brings it, the man and woman were created one being. Right? Siamese twins, you've heard of that? So, but they can be connected from the head, it can be connected. So our sages tell us that man and woman were created one being. They were connected, but back to back. They're connected back to back. Their backs were together, and they had 2 faces and 2 arms and 2 legs each, but they were facing outward from each other. That's the way God created them. Which is unity. It's one thing. But then, of course in chapter 2 already, God says, man is alone. How's he alone if they're together? So then Kabbalah says that he puts man to sleep. The Torah says Adam went to sleep. And then what happened? What did he do? He takes the tzela. That's right. The Hebrew, the tzela. Tzela has 2 interpretations. One means a rib, and one means side. Many times in the Torah, the word tzela is used for the side of, like in the Mishkan. If you go to the eastern side and the western side, the word tzela is used. So he takes the one side of man, and he takes it away from Adam, and then he wakes up. Ooh, now there's 2 of us. Now there's a woman. I'll call her Isha, ki me'ish luka chazot. It's almost like Ish and Isha, right? It's like maybe version 2. It's like iPhone 1 and iPhone 2. So it's Adam 1 and Adam 2. Eve, essentially was another version of man. And our Kabbalists tell us this is called the Nisira. Nisira is what's in that in Hebrew? Linsor. To saw. It's the sawing of man in half. And, the magicians, they saw a person in half and they separate them. So God did the first magic trick. And he sawed man in half, and somehow they survived the surgery. And why bother? He could have just created man and woman separate entities. Why bother? Anybody want to venture a guess? Maybe you've heard of this. What do the Kabbalists teach us? Why did they have to be born like that and then come together again and then be separated?
Experience that something's missing or something is not working for them, and I say, okay, they did something with it.
Okay.
That's like,
Good answer. What were you going to say, Ben? You raised your hand before.
I mean, they can't really reproduce that way.
Good question. Good question. How could they reproduce, right?
How can they reproduce? That's it. Why not?
Well, the way it is now, he's just saying the sexual organs would be opposite, not facing each other, and so if they're back to back, so they couldn't reproduce. Very interesting. Good point. Yeah, what do you say?
I think because men have a soulmate, right? But now it's like your soulmate was always with you. It's from the same source. So it was a part of you, your other being.
So that's very, you're saying it's an educational message. It's an amazing thing to recognize that you are missing something. That if I go back to my theme of God creating, starting off with unity, and then dividing, that there's the separation. So man too was originally a unity. But then, part of the way God created the world is he created this division. This division in the world, and that expresses itself in male and female. And the Kabbalists say the following, I said that they were connected back to back. So they're connected. Why bother separating them? Because what happens after they're separated, they can come back together. They can come back together, but there's other options. There's actually 4. Anybody study, a little computer science, that if you have 2 entities that can interact with each other, there's got to be 4 options, right? So they can come back to back, or face to back, or face to back, or face to face. In other words, relationships can get a lot more interesting. And perhaps there's a different quality in the same relationship between man and woman. But there can be a quality if you can have a relationship. And I'd say I know even, probably you can think of 2 people you can see, maybe marriages you've seen, or relationships, people are in relationships. Without even getting into what it means, you could think already on your own, it's a back-to-back relationship, as opposed to a face-to-face relationship. Face-to-face, what does it mean more than back-to-back? Love, you say what? Positive, what else?
Not all the time.
Honesty.
Not always, okay, what?
Honesty.
Face-to-face is honesty, as opposed back-to-back.
A fish eats up the other fish face to face.
Whoa, yes, it could be more intense, and it could intense in a bad way. I hear that. Sometimes you want, it's more distant. Back-to-back is more distant, right?
Boxing or face to face.
Boxing, yeah. Okay, I hear that. Kissing, usually, we say, is
Face to face.
it's fed mouth to mouth. It's even closer, right? It's like recombining, coming together. It's a very interesting phenomenon. I think it's only humans that kiss. Right? It's only humans that kiss. It's a strange activity. It's a strange behavior. When you think about it, don't think about it too much. When you think about it, what's going on here? What is this? Mouth-to-mouth resuscitation here? But this is a human drive. It's part of the sexual drive to come together, and kissing and hugging and all this other stuff. We'll talk about that. But the very concept that there is division, this is the way God created the world. I want to follow up on something Ben said. Why bother? Why bother? So what the Torah sets up for us in the system of Adam and Eve is that they have to come together. And what's their commandment after Eve is created? Have children. To be productive. Production in the world that creates more. That creates what's called in Hebrew blessing, bracha. Bracha, God blesses the people, the Adam and Eve, and says to them, pru urvu. The very concept of blessing, which means to multiply, to have more, I bless you. That you should have blessings in your life. It means you should have more experiences, more wealth, more goodness of all kinds. We're going to bless you. You should have a rainy season, lots of rains. Rains come. What do rains come? It's a blessing of rain. Why? What happens? Things grow, growing, expanding, and multiplying. So the world, apparently, as a matter of fact, there's a term in Chazal, in the Talmud, that says when the rains come, when they don't come, it's a big problem, especially for agricultural world. It means starvation. It means you can't live without the rains. But when they do come, especially if there was no rains for a while, and then the rains come, you say a bracha. There's a bracha to say when the good rains come after there was a drought. And what's the difference? How much rain is enough to make a bracha? Everything has to have a definition, a shear, right? You have to have a measurement. What's the measurement of enough rain? The term in Chazal is as follows: Kasher yotzei chatan likrat kala. When the bride comes out towards the groom, what does that mean in terms of rain? What kind of rain is that?
The groom to the bride.
Groom to the bride, whatever. What does that mean? So the Rishonim explain what the Gemara means is that when you have so much rain that you get puddles, and then when it continues to rain on the puddles, what happens? Splatter comes up. The rain falls down, and the rain comes up, and then they meet each other. So you have up from the bottom and down from below. That is called Chatan v'Kala. Very interesting, right? Very interesting image. So blessing comes from relationships. That's the message, I believe, of Parshat Bereshit, of the story of Bereshit, the story of Adam and Eve, and then the continuation of, we talked about generations being born, and the lineage charts, and then the family relationships, the brothers, the Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and then the siblings, and all that. The Torah is telling us the way to get blessing in the world is by having these relationships. Okay, so we are, of course, going to talk about marriage and relationships, but I think that understanding the importance of it, it's not just because you want to get married and So I try to do some shidduchim. I try to set some couples up. Not so good at it, but my wife started. Everybody should try because people need help, especially where else are you going to meet girls than on the bar? We don't hang out at bars, hopefully, right? That's not where we should. That's not usually a conducive atmosphere to. The base measures, but the measures is only men. So there actually are some base measures for men and women, but that's not the ideal. I'm not talking. So how are you supposed to? So people introduce you. There's actually professionals, matchmakers, but there's everybody should be an amateur matchmaker too. So how did I meet my wife? A mutual friend. I mean, he was my friend in high school, and I just met him recently. He was very successful, and he was working at a company with my wife. This goes back almost 30 years. We're married. We're going to be 29 in a couple months. Baruch Hashem. Yeah. 3.5 grandchildren. Baruch Hashem. So he set us up. He introduced us. We owe him so much. What a beautiful thing. He's not a professional, but he has an eye. If you have your eyes open, your ears open, and we have to help each other out. So, in any case, I know some people that they go and they speak to the shadchan or shadchanit, female shadchanit. So they're thinking of they want to get married. And they want to have a relationship. They want to have children. They want to build a home. And really, that's their mentality is eyes on the prize. Okay, they don't really want to pay attention to the shadchan or the shadchanit. They just have to go through the motions because they're not going to marry the shadchanit. So what turns out is, so they go, maybe they fill out a form, they sort of, they're on their phone. They're not really paying attention to the shadchanit because they don't really care about her. They care about their future, their date. Their date they'll pay full attention to. But what this is showing is they were not in this class. Right? Because what I'm trying to teach you is that there's all kinds of relationships, and we can learn from one from the other. About one from the other, they're all different, perhaps of various degrees. Obviously, you're not going to have a long heart-to-heart in the elevator for 30 seconds, or with the bank clerk, but it's a relationship. It's an interaction. An interaction is what make up relationships. And so, if you go to the shadchanit and you don't talk about yourself and you're not able to express yourself and you're not going to share with her anything that you're looking for, then she's going to say, this guy is just not ready for marriage. He doesn't know how to have a basic conversation with somebody, if it's a shadchanit, it's of the other sex. And if it's a shadchan, the rabbi will say, boy, this guy, he doesn't know how to interact with people. He can't open his mouth. He can't express himself. He can't share. He doesn't know himself yet. And so it's going to hurt your chances of getting a good match because I'll give you another example. You walk into the bank, you need a loan, okay? You need a bank loan. So you ask to see the bank manager, you sit in front of the bank manager, and says, I need a loan. This is, he asks you why. He says, okay, I have a business. I need to, buy some wood because I'm building cabinets, whatever. And I don't have the cash, Okay. Now, this bank manager that you're asking for a favor from, or you're asking to be, obviously it's a business. He gets from it. He benefits from it as well. But do you think he hasn't been noticing? Did you say good morning to the clerk when you walked in? Did you say, please, may I see the manager? Did you say hello? Did you smile when you spoke to him? Did you, make small talk? The interaction is important, and it has an effect on, he's thinking in his mind, okay, is this guy going to pay after he takes the loan? If I give him the money, is he going to care whether I need the money paid back on time? Let's say you make an appointment. You come late for the appointment. Well, maybe he'll be late on his bank payments. Right? The interaction that you have in the relationships, it all reflects on the other relationships. And so people tend to ignore the relationships, even though they're on the path to gaining a relationship. And one of the questions that people are going to ask you is, actually it says in the Gemara, if you want to check out a girl, if she's good, a good girl, someone worthy of marriage, says, check out the brothers. Does she? So the simple understanding is, well, are the brothers smart? Are they nice? But I believe it could be interpreted also, what's her relationship with her brothers? Does she talk to them? Do they have an open relationship? Are they friends? Do they play games when they were kids? Okay, obviously, or do they have conversations when they're older? Your relationships between your siblings are going to reflect on the type of marriage that you have. People are feeling a little uncomfortable about that now. I say, I haven't spoken to my brother in 6 months. Okay.
Well, that's for the girl.
So in the modern context, in a yeshiva, they're going to say, well, how does he get along with his chavrusa? Does he get along with his roommates? Is he fighting? What do they say about him? Is he a friendly guy in his social circles? Or in the army unit, do people like him? You can't just turn it on and off. You either invest in relationships because you understand this is what God wants of us. God wants, He created the world, that there are divisions, that there are separations, and He wants us to connect them. You have to learn how to make connections. And ultimately, the most important connection that you're ever going to make 100% is when you get married. But then, that connection, it's going to reflect on, are you going to be a good father? Do you know how to have a relationship with kids? I had once when I was dating my wife, and it's a personality thing. She was ready after apparently 1 or 2 dates, a couple of weeks. She was definitely, that's what she tells me, that she knew. But I'm not that type. I'm more reserved. I'm a little more cautious. Think about things. It took me 6 months. Okay, so fine. So over the course of the 6 months, I liked her from the beginning. That's why we continued to go out. So I met different people who know her, different people who met her, different circumstances. That's what dating's for, really, to get to know somebody different in different circumstances. And this guy who actually knew her in a different context, knew her as a madricha. My wife was a counselor of in various like informal education programming and stuff like that. And he says to me, "Oh yeah, she's going to be such a great mother." And like, I never even thought of that at that point. I wasn't really thinking of like, what's the, what kind of mother is she going to be? I was just trying to, get to know her and see if I like her, if she's the one, right? But of course, it has ramifications. How you interact with children, how you interact with adults. If you see her with elderly, everything impacts everything. So all different types of relationships impact the other type of relationships. It's a portable skill, is what I'm trying to get across here. And if you are interested in getting married, I think everybody here is, except for you. But you are also, because Bezrat Hashem, when you convert, you have to remarry your wife. So we'll talk about remarriage too, and there are all sorts of,
Maybe relationship is constantly remarriage.
Yes, absolutely. You always have to renew and look at it fresh. And by all means, it's something that grows. You grow a relationship just like a friendship grows over time, right? You know somebody for a month, for 2 months, it's different for a year, and then you gather shared experiences. Your relationship gets deeper, even if you don't really want to. The army is the best example, right? You go through basic training with a group of guys, you get to know them. Like it or not, you know them, and then
You can't stop dating them.
you can't stop, exactly. You can't just check out if you don't want to. But over the course of time, really, sometimes those relationships last the longest. You go through, significant experiences with them. People are friends with people they were friends with at the age of 18, even though they rarely see them. They see them once every couple of years in a miluim or in but you right away have the common bond. You have the common rapport. Because you learn to know people. So one more. I want to get to the same theme using one more technique, and that is, what mitzvot in the Torah are there of relationships? Where we talked about. Where do we find them in the different books? And but what mitzvot are there? Mitzvot, laws. You must have a relationship. Very good. Love of the stranger. What did you say, Shirley? After the Recha Kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. What did you say? Love your mother and father. That's very good. Hashavat Aveda. Okay, you must return a lost object of somebody that lost an object. Yeah, those are commandments. I'm talking about commandments. What other commandments are there? You see a mule under its burden. That's right. You got to help somebody out. Excellent. There's many mitzvot ben adam lechavero, right? There's even a whole category. We say ben adam lamakom, or mitzvot between man and God. And then there's a whole category. I can show you an article. The rabbi presents a case that the mitzvot ben adam lechavero are even more central to Judaism than the mitzvot ben adam lamakom. The mitzvot between man and man are primary. Even if you count, if you leave out all the ones of the Beit HaMikdash, you only consider them one because there's like 200 of them. So in the count of 630, that's like a big chunk. But that's clearly ben adam lamakom, okay? Although there is animals involved. So but ben adam lechavero, there's so many. How many ben adam mitzvot ben adam lamakom? Okay, keep the holidays, put on tefillin, tzitzit, and a regular day. How many mitzvot ben adam lamakom are there? Whereas ben adam lechavero, you've got your coworker, and you've got your spouse and your kids and your mother and father and the people on the bus and the people. You've got all these interactions, and we're blessed here to have gerim. According to Chazal, the stranger means people that actually convert. The pshat of the Torah, in many cases, refers to a foreigner in the land, and actually the safe. Yeah, like a tourist or somebody who's working here, or somebody's checking out. There you go. That's the British in America, right? Who was that? Sting. So there are mitzvot of relationship. And the parallel is striking. Torah actually says about 3 of them, specifically love. Of course, love your neighbor as yourself. Love the ger, stranger, and
Help the orphan, the widow.
that goes together with the convert, the widow, and the orphan. And one other, love Hashem. Perhaps the most important relationship, which we started off with, because here we are in yeshiva. Oh, we're all into, God. Hey, that's why we're here, because we're taking our religion seriously, which is a good thing, and it is a mitzvah, no question about it. We say it twice a day. V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. Where do we say that?
Shema.
In the Shema. Of course, it's an essential part of our lives. No question about it. That's a relationship, and we can learn how to love Hashem if we learn how to love our neighbor or love the stranger. I'll finish with this story told by Rabbi Eliyahu Dividash. He was a Kabbalist in Tzfat, student of the Ramak, or Moshe Cordovero. He wrote a book called Reshit Chochmah, beautiful sort of book of ethics based on Kabbalistic teachings. Every page is full of quotes of the Zohar. And he tells the story of this man who was a simple man, a farmer, and he, in his day there was the caste system, right? The simple peasant couldn't dream of marrying the royalty or the aristocracy. It's just like today in India, there's still a caste system today. It's just that there's various groups. Anyways, he was from the lowest caste, and he was working in his field, and one day he sees a gorgeous woman walk by, or actually she wasn't walking, she was being carried by in some kind of a carriage. She was clearly aristocracy. But he couldn't do it. He was smitten. He couldn't stop thinking about her. And you know what? He had nothing to do about it. It was impossible for him to ever consummate his thoughts. He could have a relationship with her. And it drove him insane. Literally. He couldn't work anymore. He couldn't stop with this infatuation he had with this love that was in his heart, and he couldn't release it anywhere. And he tells the story that he left society. He couldn't work and he couldn't live in town. And where do you go when you have to leave society? Forest is good. He went to the cemetery. No people there. He was and he lived there by himself. And all he did all day and all night is he meditated. But then, there's a good ending to the story because he realized that he couldn't really marry her, but the love was kindled in his heart. And he started to think about love, and he says, well, where does she come from? Well, she's a human being who was created by God. And God created the heavens and the stars, and he looked, he was connecting with nature, being outside of society. And his love for this, or the beginning of love for this woman, eventually led him to a tremendous love of God. And he really became a very spiritual, religious individual. And this is what the Reshit Chochmah says, that I want to love God. After the Shem Elokech, I say Shema every day. How am I supposed to learn how to love God? He says, love a woman. Wow. So you love a human being. Doesn't only have to be a woman. I showed you that all relations, love your fellow man, doesn't only mean your wife, love your roommate as much as he snores. As hard as it may be, love your classmate, love your fellow Jew. The very act of having a loving relationship is going to be your guide for how to love Hashem. So you want to learn in yeshiva? Start paying attention to Bein Adam L'Chavero. That's going to help you develop your relationship with God. And it's not, that's what I said, what did I call it? Portable skills? Not only between, business world and your social circles and your family circles and ultimately your marriage and your children and your grandparents, but between you, us, and Hashem. Ultimately, it's all about relationship. It's bringing heaven and earth back together again, back to the story of Breshit. It's bringing the upper waters and the lower waters back together, right? Day 2 was God made the firmament, separated the upper waters and lower waters, and then we talked about the rainfall being chatan likrat kala, the waters from below, the waters from above. So, Bezrat Hashem, we're going to sometimes be a little more connected to texts. Sometimes we'll do little exercises about relationships, but it's not all about dating and marriage. We're going to be mentioning that as well. But it's, I think, the way I approach it, the way I approach the topic of marriage really is that you have to learn how that you are not alone in the world. You are not just, it's not all about me. There's somebody else. There's someone else. That's the key. And how to develop these. There are various types of relationships. We mentioned love. There's also fear. There's also awe. There's also servitude. There's so many types of relationships. And Bezrat Hashem is what we're going to be exploring in the coming lessons. Next